Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokémon Journeys episode 59, The Lost Grookey. Who is its trainer? This was the 1144th episode of the Pokemon anime, and it was a pretty divisive one. The way Go ended up catching Grookey was polarizing for some fans, so this should be an interesting one to review. I'll be curious to hear your reactions to this episode down in the comments. Let's get into the highlights. The episode starts with Go having a nightmare. Well, kind of. This was a really strange way to open an episode. It kind of reminded me of when Ash dreamt about Nebby back in Sun and Moon, but at the same time, this was totally different. If you didn't catch my review about the last episode, I pointed out that this opening segment is actually a reference to a story called The Metamorphosis, which was written by Franz Kafka in 1915. So there is context to this weird opening to the episode, but it still felt really out of place. And I mean, I don't think there's a lot of crossover between Pokemon Journeys fans and people who are very familiar with Franz Kafka's work, so this was just such a strange way to open an episode. Let's move on. So Go wakes up from his bad dream, but he's actually got a Grookey asleep on his arm, so he's still freaking out. Ash is just excited to see a new Pokemon, and Pikachu copies Grookey by resting on Ash's arm, which was pretty cute. Go tries to catch Grookey, but his Rotom phone Pokedex yells at him, "Don't be a thief," which I'm pretty sure is something you get told in the games if you try and throw a Pokeball in a trainer battle. I'm not totally sure on that. Grookey wakes up after this and starts causing all kinds of trouble. Its way of making friends is apparently by bashing people on the head with its stick, and only Mimey is agile enough to evade its head-pounding fun and games. We don't get to see Mr. Mime too much in this series, considering it's living with Ash and Go, but every time it does show up, it always does something that puts a smile on my face. Grookey eventually gets tired and hungry, which kind of hinted to me that it may still be a very young Pokemon, and they all have a huge breakfast, which includes Ash joking about how he'd run away from a meal just to eat breakfast. They make the same joke again when they eat lunch, and Ash says he'd run away from a meal just to eat lunch, which was classic Ash. Grookey's got its energy back up, so it starts running around again, and are those Pokemon cards stacked up on the counter? I couldn't tell for sure what these were, but they sure looked like Pokemon cards. Did you guys notice that at all? Anyways, the rest of the Cerise lab is introduced to Grookey's antics, and this causes Pikachu to get angry and shock everyone, which gave us this hilarious visual. Later, they try and figure out what the deal is with Grookey, and after Ren brings up Ash's Gengar, it appears behind him and scares him, continuing one of the low-key best relationships in all of Pokemon Journeys. Ash's Gengar toying around with Ren all the time. They decide Yamper is their best bet to try and find Grookey's original trainer, which was ironic since Yamper was just blankly staring at a wall trying to figure out where Gengar went after it disappeared into thin air. Clearly, Yamper knows what it's doing when it comes to locating things. So we get to see the old trope of a dog-like Pokemon tracking something's scent, and they eventually end up at what I think is a Pokemart, but I'm not 100% sure on that. They check the Mart's security footage and see that Grookey actually came from their Rocket Prize Master of all things, meaning that Grookey is Team Rocket's Pokemon? Really? Ash and Go are obviously taken aback by this revelation, and right on cue, guess who's here to steal Pikachu? Everyone's favorite lovely, charming villains. What happens next was one of the least important details in the entire episode, but still one of my favorites. Ash actually used one of his other Pokemon. I mean, all Farfetch'd did was cut through a net and land one hit on Team Rocket, but this is the kind of stuff I've missed, just Ash's Pokemon showing up from time to time. It's so simple, but we almost never get to see it anymore. We got Gengar and Farfetch'd this week, but Ash's Lucario hasn't been seen in so long that it must be making good friends with Dracovish. Again, kind of making a big deal about a small detail here, but it was just nice to see Ash send out one of his other Pokemon for a battle. We'll talk more about Farfetch'd later. So this next part was interesting. Team Rocket get the Prize Master out, and of course, what do they get? It's obviously Grookey's empty Pokeball. They had no idea Grookey was one of their Pokemon. I mean, Jessie didn't even believe it until it was actually inside the ball itself, and everyone is so confused that Meowth just throws a smoke bomb and they retreat. Go picks up Grookey's stick that it dropped, and now things get complicated. Go has bonded with Grookey and has expressed wanting to catch it, but now he's separated from it and doesn't know what it means that Grookey is Team Rocket's Pokemon. We get a scene at Team Rocket's hideout where they just get chased around by Morpego's Aura Wheel, which I guess is meant to be Journey's version of a Beware hug. Grookey is all sad and looks around for its stick, and eventually it finds a way out of the hideout and runs away. The next day, Ash and Go search for Grookey, takes them back to the park where they ate lunch yesterday, and they find Grookey there, and it immediately jumps into Go's arms. We don't really get a ton of explanation as to why Grookey is so attached to Go so soon, but it's obvious that it really likes Go, and their reunion here was at least a little touching. Team Rocket show up and they try to reclaim Grookey. I was kind of hoping we get to see them recite their motto for a second time in the episode and get cut off. That was one of my favorite Team Rocket tropes from back in the day when they'd show up multiple times in one episode, but instead they try to recall Grookey into its ball, which causes Grookey to just destroy its own Pokeball. And yeah, I had a similar reaction to Jesse and James at this point. Pokemon can do that? I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I think the only other time we've seen something like this was when Jessie destroyed her Dustox's Pokeball when she released it. And we certainly haven't seen a Pokemon release itself like this before. That being said, I was surprised when this happened, but not angry. Just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean that it shouldn't be possible for a Pokemon to act like this. Grookey clearly did not want to be with Team Rocket, and it actually immediately calls out for Go to catch it, which was really funny because Meowth translated that for everyone to hear, which was so helpful. Well, not for Team Rocket. I showed the catching sequence at the start of this review. Grookey deflects Jessie's Pokeball and eagerly accepts Go's capture, and Pikachu's Thunderbolt sends Team Rocket blasting off again. The episode ends back at the Cerise Park with Grookey making friends with its new family members in the only way Grookey knows how. And I've got a lot to discuss about this episode, so let's dive right into it. I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10 rating. Like I said at the start, this was a polarizing episode for a lot of people. I landed on the side of really liking it, but you may not have enjoyed it as much. That's totally fine, your opinion is just as valid as mine. Let's start by talking about Go being the one to catch Grookey. I know a lot of people are either frustrated or disappointed by Ash not getting any of the Galar starters, but this doesn't really make a difference to me. I mean, it hasn't mattered to me before who ends up with what starter Pokemon, so I'm really indifferent as to who actually ends up catching the starter Pokemon in each region. Ash's current team is arguably his most unique team ever, and sure, it would have been cool for Grookey to have been added to it, but I also think it makes a nice addition to Go's collection of Pokemon too. And I already complained a lot about Ash's Pokemon not getting enough screen time, so adding another one to the mix wouldn't solve that problem. Go now having all 3 Galar starters is really interesting. He's the first main character aside from Ash to catch all 3 regional starters, and it will be curious to see how he juggles having all of them. So far, Cinderace and Sobble have definitely been his main 2 partners in Pokemon Journeys, but Cinderace hasn't been in the last 2 episodes, and Sobble hasn't got much screen time of its own lately either. Is Grookey going to become the center of Go's attention now? I'll be curious to see how the 3 of them interact. As for how Go caught Grookey, which I know is probably another thing people may not have totally agreed with, I actually liked the way this episode played out. Sure, Grookey could have just been a wild Pokemon, or maybe they could have gone down the same old route of having Grookey be abandoned by a previous trainer or something like that, but I liked the idea of it being a Team Rocket Pokemon. Surely we'll get an episode or 2 in the future that explains the backstory there, because there's got to be more to the story of how Grookey ended up with Team Rocket. For the time being though, I liked how this episode turned the tables and actually had Ash and Go trying to get one of Team Rocket's Pokemon, as opposed to it usually being the other way around. Like I said before, Grookey breaking its own Pokeball was strange, but I was alright with it. Go and Grookey seemed to bond really fast, and that dream segment to open the episode didn't really shed a lot of light as to what was going on, but by the end of the episode, Go and Grookey's relationship was pretty sweet. After months of predicting that Go would catch Grookey, he finally did, so maybe that's why I don't have as big of a reaction to this episode as some people. I've been expecting this for a long time. But as always, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts. The comments are wide open for you, and of course, I always welcome and encourage some respectful discussion over on my Discord server. By the way, I guess I'll just plug this right now. To show my appreciation for the first group of people to join my Discord, I'm giving away some of my shiny Pokemon to anyone who wants them. So head on over to Discord if you'd like a shiny Roselia or Weavile on Sword and Shield. First come, first serve, and stick around and make some friends while you're over there. The next episode is one I'm really looking forward to. It's Ash vs. Rinto, Farfetch'd vs. Gallade, Round 2. This will come 9 episodes after their first encounter, which was obviously a dominant victory for Rinto and Gallade. Ash and Farfetch'd have done some training since then, not enough training and bonding if you ask me, but alright, here we go. It's time for the big rematch. The biggest moment in the preview seemed to be Farfetch'd's leak getting cut in 2, but the last shot of it jumping into the air kind of screamed, "Here comes an epic mid-battle evolution" to me. I'll throw my prediction out there that Farfetch'd is going to evolve and defeat Gallade, but I am not very confident in that prediction. I think Rinto and Gallade could easily win again and extend the storyline even further, and I'd be totally alright with that outcome as well. Let me hear your guys' predictions for next week. Who's winning, and will we get to see a Farfetch'd? One other thing I wanted to mention was that I did an interview last week, and if you like my videos, then I can pretty much guarantee you'll be interested in checking out my interview where I talk about content creation and Pokemon Journeys. If you've ever wanted to know a little bit more about me, the Mark behind Elite Trainer Mark, then you'll definitely learn some things in this interview, and I'm sure you'll like it. The link to this should be in the top right of the screen right now, and it will be in the description as well. So go over and like the video and subscribe to my friend Kevin's channel if you like what you see. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and talk to me down in the comments, over on Discord, and follow me on Twitter. We're now on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys next time.